thought I would talk a little bit about the pieces that I'm going to play today. I'm doing today Haydn Sonata number 48 in C major. I think I mentioned these two sisters. I looked them up, Katerina and Mariana Auenbrugger. Haydn wrote a set of 6 sonatas for the two of them, I guess 3 apiece. This is he wrote about 60 sonatas. This is number 48. It's in C major. I talked the other day about Baroque suites, and around 1730 or so, 1740, the sonata replaced the suite as like the main vehicle for playing. This sonata was written in 1780 by Haydn. All sonatas work the same way. There's an opening theme. In the key of C, because the piece is in C. Then it does various things, and it modulates to the key of G. And there's a second theme. It's sort of contrasting with the first theme. This is Haydn's second theme. Okay, and it goes through various in the key of G. And then it cadences in G. Okay, and then it starts this middle section that kind of, it's like putting all the themes in a blender, and what pops out, pops out. And eventually it cadences and goes back to the original theme. So Haydn does. Okay, now the original theme was in this octave. When it comes back, Haydn does it in a lower octave. Just to kind of fool around with things. And everything in the first part that happened in G happens in C. Because if it happened in G, it would be like the Twilight Zone, and the piece would just go on and never end. Okay? All sonatas work the same way. Then there's a slow second movement, and then there's a fast third movement, which in this case is a minuet. Okay? The other thing Haydn does that's really wonderful, I think, in this piece is he fools around with triplets as opposed to eighth notes. So you have this kind of jaunty rhythm. And you'd kind of expect this kind of accompaniment to it. But what Haydn does is he uses, instead of 4 notes per beat, he uses 3 notes per beat against it. So you have this kind of, not clashing, but this kind of melding of this kind of smooth stuff against this very jaunty stuff. Okay, Haydn Sonata number 48 in C. First movement is marked Allegro con brio, which is Allegro with a lot of oomph, more or less. Second movement is marked Adagio, which means slow. And the third movement, Finale, is marked Allegro, which simply means fast. Okay. And next, a piece of Scott Joplin. Called Solace, a Mexican serenade. Or in Spanish, the word for solace is Consuelo, which is actually a name. So it could be that this was inspired by a woman named Consuelo. Scott Joplin was a very interesting man. He was born in 1868 in Texarkana. Nobody's sure if he was born on the Arkansas side or the Texas side. But it's pretty definite that he was born in Texarkana. He lived there for a couple of years. His mother was a maid and his father worked for the railroad. They were, at the time, two of the types of employment that Afro-Americans could have. Was to be a railroad porter or some kind of worker on the railroad, and his mother was a maid. When he was about 3, they moved to Sedalia, Missouri. And his mother became the maid of a woman who had a piano, and she would take young Scott Joplin along with her, I guess because she couldn't afford babysitting or had babysitting, and he taught himself the piano because this woman had a piano. He tried to study piano as he got older, of course, because he was Afro-American. Nobody would teach him. Finally, he found a German Jewish emigre named Julius Weiss, who agreed to teach him. And he studied with Weiss until he was a late teenager, and then he moved to St. Louis. And from St. Louis, he moved to New York. He was apparently a tremendously serious and intelligent man. People who met him said he was very quiet and very serious. And he was, throughout his entire life, very devoted to education and gave money to a great many young Afro-American men, black men, to go to black colleges at the time. He wrote well over 100 pieces. He was only 48 when he died. He died in New York City of the effects of syphilis. And he really is a tremendously underrated composer. He wrote a couple of books about ragtime and the theory of ragtime, which of course was not taken seriously because it was a non-European, shall we say, art form. He also wrote 2 operas. I would love to see a production of Treemonisha, but nobody has done it. This piece, Solace, is a wonderfully composed piece, and I just want to talk a little bit about it. You know, almost all rags start with an intro, and this one does too. And then it has this little, I wouldn't say pedestrian, but there's nothing special about this little theme. But Joplin adds a couple of little twists and turns and a little harmony. And this theme all of a sudden becomes this absolutely wonderful, wonderful theme. It just transforms into this really wistful, emotional, touching theme, I think. And all rags then modulate to a B section, which is in a contrasting key. In this case, it's the key of F. And there's a second segment. Then it goes back to the A section. Then, again, it goes to a C section in a contrasting key, which in this case, again, is the key of F, little contrasting theme. Which Joplin just does wonderful things with. It's filled with these little filler figures, and they're all different. And then it goes, in this case, to a D section, which is the A theme turned upside down. And the Mexican flavor, which I must say is a very Midwestern, Middle America Mexican interpretation, comes from this habanero rhythm in the left hand. Anyway, sort of related to. So it's a little Iberian flavor, not much, but it's a wonderful piece. Composed in 1916. Ooh, yes, I think it's fun to watch the hands do these stride basses in ragtime. Your left hand is sort of all over the place. The tempo is very interesting. It says very slow march time. So if the piece is not, people always play ragtime too fast. you.